Hello, hello. It's me, Jane, here at the pack. And if you are like most of the United States, certainly the Midwest, we are so tired of winter. It's been really, really cold. Not a lot of snow, but really cold and nasty. Today, the sun is out. We are actually, I believe, above the freezing point, which is yay. So I thought, just to kind of get us in that mood for spring, look at this. Let's make this happen. It's pretty, it's bright. Keep in mind, I am working on a 16 by 20 canvas because it's easier to show you on a 16 by 20 canvas. You can put this on a little 10 by 10. You could do just like a portion, or you could do just the tree, whatever you want. But I'm going to go 16 by 20, so let's get started. So we're going to start with the palettes. The palette today we have Cerulean Blue, Titanium White, Dioxazine Purple. This is Phthalo Blue. This is Cadmium Yellow Medium. We also will be using a deep magenta and burnt umber, but that's later, so I don't want to add that to my palette yet because I do kind of wild mixing, and there you have it. So that's what we're starting with, okay? We're going to start with our flat brush, which is awesome for doing these big backgrounds, especially on a larger canvas. This is approximately 1 inch wide, but we're going to get that brush wet first, and we're going to start our sky. So with our sky, we're just going to grab some blue, the Cerulean Blue, and I'm going to pull a little bit of white over. And I'm not going to heavily mix it, just kind of a partial mix, just a loose mix. You can see how much white is still on the brush there. Boom. And then we're just going to go back and forth. Big, long strokes. And then I'm just going to grab a little more white, drag it through. We're going to go about 3/4 of the way down our canvas. Again, I paint the sides. You don't have to do that, personal preference. And I just paint them as I go because it's just easier for me. But you do your thing. And of course I move the canvas all kinds of ways. And I'm sorry if my big fat head's in the way. I'm going to get these sides and top done. Remember, if your paint's getting gummy or sticky, a little more water, just a touch more water. Because see how watery that came out? Come on, baby. Now I'm going to go back and forth. Big strokes. Add a little more water. Going to grab a little more blue. Whoops, didn't mean to grab quite that much blue. Boom, white. You want your bolder color kind of at the outsides and the top of the canvas. So at this point I probably need no more blue at all, but we shall see because we still have quite a ways to go down the canvas. My white is fairly thick, a heavy bodied white, and that's why I'm using quite a bit of water. If you are using a white that's not heavy bodied, by heavy bodied I mean it comes out almost like pudding, which is great for a lot of things. But to spread it, you got to make sure you're really adding some water to it. Not a ton. You'll see I have no drips. We don't want drips. You don't want to add that much. Just a little. You'll get the feel of it. Oh, hey, we got some purple. Did not mean to do that. That's all right. We've got some purple mountains coming up here, so that's okay. We'll just wipe that through. And I find that if you are going to do your sides first. then come along, because we're not that worried about how the sides look, but I do like them painted. But the front, we want to keep that nice. And you want to take these strokes all the way off the edge of the canvas. Otherwise you get this. So you see all those stopping points? You don't want that. We like that striated look here of the sky. And of course you can add more white if you'd like, whatever, this is your world. But we don't want it to stop abruptly. And that's what happens if you stop before you get to the edge of the canvas. Just let it swipe all the way across. We are down just about 3/4, 2/3. I guess it's maybe closer to 2/3. So now that we have basically our sky is in there, we're going to take that same large flat brush and we're going to mix. See, I've got this nice little mess of colors going on here, just that blue and that white. We're going to bring some white over here. Try and leave some blue separate. But we're going to bring that white over here into the blue. And a touch of that purple. That's probably too much. We just want a nice, soft transition from the sky to the mountains. I'm going to grab a little more blue, a little more white. See how it's just a nice soft color? Because those mountains would be soft in the background. This is a pretty spring day. You got all that warm light. So nice little, I'm just going to grab a little more purple because I love purple. Keep in mind some of this is going to be covered by the tree, so don't get too worked up about even going all the way across if you don't want to. I'm going to start from the right, and I kind of like that little angle there. So you can go up, you can go down, whatever you like. And then I just keep it really loose. And I feel like this is a little too light, so I'm going to pull some more blue in there. A little more purple. Remember, acrylics always dry darker than what they look like when they're wet. There we go. Oh, I kind of like that. That's nice. And again, these are mountains, so there's all kinds of weird rough surfaces, little things jutting out, and they're so far in the distance, we're not going to get real detail. We're just seeing them back there. I like to take my brush, get the tip. See how I work? I can work that to get a nice sharp edge. I'm not smashing it down in the paint. Wiping both sides. And then if I take my brush at a slight angle like this, see how I just straightened out that little. And if you want a little more definition, I'm grabbing just a touch of blue. Let's see, there's a bit of a shadow in there. Okay, no big deal. Again, this is a background. I'm going to come along. That's just barely poking out back there. See, I'm just wiggling them around. Wiggle them around. I'm going to let them go to the side of the canvas. So you want horizontal strokes, but you want a few verticals in there too. Okay? How are we feeling about that? I'm going to add a little something right there. Just because I can. It's my world. Didn't take me long to quote Bob Ross, did it? Love that guy. If you want to bring it back up, you can bring it back up. That's fine. But again, this is all going to be covered by tree, but I'm just showing you what you can do. The beauty part of this is that we also have a lot of forgiveness here in this horizon line where the mountains meet the field. So I'm not getting too worked up about that's got to be perfectly straight, because we're going to work in some details there with smaller brushes and at a different angle that you can control it a little bit better. So if you feel like you're kind of whoopsie doozy, yeah, don't worry about it. It's all fixable. Now, right here, I'm washing out my brush a little bit just because I started to really build up a lot of paint in the brush. And that'll happen especially since we're mixing the paint with our brush, which is, you know, bad. But we're going to do it anyway, as long as we do it gently. Again, I'm wiping back and forth. I'm not doing this. Wipe back and forth to keep those bristles nice as long as we can. What we're adding next is kind of this little, there's a dark purpley, or a darker purple, kind of like smaller, maybe hills or plant life or whatever it is back there at the foot of those bigger mountains. And I'm just taking this same mix and I'm adding more purple to it. And again, you can come over here and just grab some blue. That's fine. Boom, boom. And so I'm just going to take this brush, and I'm not smashing it in. I'm just kind of dragging it along. Sometimes I bring it up high. It's okay if it's not a perfect... See, I've just got little dots there. That's okay. This is the distance. We don't know what's going on back there. And this is where we can kind of add to our background if we feel like it has not as straight as we'd like it to be. This is where we can do that. But again, don't let your color get too bright. Like you don't want to just use the straight purple. Or the straight blue for that matter, really. And so I'm going to have some parts that are smaller and some parts that are bigger. Because we're going to put more shrubbery in front of this. So go free, baby. Do your thing. If you want to just stick something up in there like this, that's fine too. Let's have some standing up shrubbery. Trees way back there. We're going to take it to about here. And again, this is all behind our tree, so don't get too worked up about it. This is just stuff growing back there. Going wild. And maybe there's not quite so much stuff here. It starts to soften over here. That's fine. But I'm doing it all along the edge of my brush, and I'm keeping my brush fairly dry. I'm just picking up more paint. I'm not getting like lots of water because I don't need that water.
I'm just adding little different tones. And I'm going to go to the side. And I might as well well-used towel.
We're going to do our field. We are going to use our Phthalo Blue and our Cad Yellow Medium. We'll add a touch of white, but we want it to be fairly bright in the background, this really pretty bright green where the sun's really coming down and hitting that part of the field. So I'm going to take just some yellow here, put it to the side, grab a touch of blue. Just start out with a touch because it's very strong. It goes a long way. It'll go a long way, baby. But that's just that touch. Look how green that is. So I'm going to bring in more yellow. And maybe just a touch more. Okay, so I'm going to grab some of this. We're going to go right back here. There we go, look at that. And don't get too freaked out if you are getting some yellow up in here. That's okay, because we're going to add some more green colors in there anyway. Greens and pinks. We're going to add some pinks to the background. Very soft. Kind of pinky purples, really.
I'm going to touch just a little bit of white because I feel like this is still a little too transparent. So I'm going to grab a little white. I'm just going to pop that yellow on a little bit more. There we go. Go back to my greens. I'm going to go into a little bit of darker green. I'm going to grab a touch of that lighter green and just start to blend it down. Blend, blend, very softly, very easily. Doesn't have to be a perfect smooth blend, of course. You need a little water? Just a touch of water. Okay? Just to help it blend. Move, move, get off of there. I'm going to grab that green. I got just a little extra blue in there. That's okay. And bring that down to the front. That's where we want our boldest. That is nearest to us. That is the most color-enriched portion. Color-enriched? That's a weird phrase. Has the brightest color. Closest to us. Color saturation is what I'm looking for. You see how when I do this? That's because the pinks that I'm mixing are very transparent. I'm going to grab just a touch of white. Alright. Alright, so we got most of the brush strokes out of there. We can come back and add a little more as that dries. But for right now, we've worked it enough. At least I worked mine enough. Boom, 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 boom. Alright. I'm still wet enough. I'm going to add some of this blue down here. So I do want it darker up here. No, not there. Alright, we'll come back. We will come back. You may not have to if you did yours well. I've got a little bit of streaking going on here I'm not happy about, but my paint is getting a tad too dry to work with. So, I'm going to stop there. And we're going to go to our clouds.
Now everybody does clouds differently. I'm just going to show you the way that we're going to do them today. The sky should be dry enough that we're not having any kind of problem at all. Because you don't want the sky to be tacky at this point. But we've done enough of the field and the mountains and everything else. I'm good to go. So don't paint on it if it's tacky. So we're just going to take our purple mix, and I know we're changing brushes. Quit it. We're going to use our large, round, natural bristle brush. Some people call them hog's bristle. Boar's bristle is what I've always called them. I've heard them called horse bristle, horse hair. This is a synthetic, of course. but it has a much different texture and will paint differently. This is not for smooth strokes. This is for scumbling and some rougher textures. So I'm going to get my brush just a little bit wet, just the tip. And we're going to take this purpley blue color. And you can see that the water that I just added, that's already added quite a bit. I can kind of rejuvenate that paint that's under there. I want a very soft purpley blue. Just for the shadows of the clouds. That's really what we're creating here. It's just the shadows of the clouds. And then we come in with white on top of it. This takes very little paint. Okay, now after all that, I'm still going to dab this brush off onto I'm going to dab it onto a rag because I'm trying to get rid of some of that moisture. And it's okay to get rid of some of that color too. You won't use a lot of color. Just think of the clouds as the underneath is going to be the shadow, right? Because we're looking up at them. The sun is coming down on them. So the light source, we really have our light source coming from this angle. Go by the shadow of the trees, the bright of the field there, and then the light is coming down here. Okay? So with that in mind, I'm just going to take this purple color, and you saw me just wipe it off. Now look at how much paint is still on there, because we want to kind of keep that blue behind it. And we are going to come along, and you can just tap. I am barely touching this canvas. So tap along if you want some a little bit darker, lighter, whatever you want. If you want to go a little more color, grab some. I'm going to grab some purple just to show you. I think that might be a little too purpley, but that's okay. I like to keep most of the clouds over here because of that pink and purple tone. It sort of ties it all together nicely once you have this big hot pink tree sitting there. Let's see how just that little touch of white made a difference. Just gonna lighten it. Whoops, too much white. Too much white. That's okay. We'll work with him. All right, and this is probably about it for my clouds. So what I'm trying to do is leave a little blue showing through, because, you know, clouds are very light, transparent, constantly moving, so I have a tendency to move in little circles. I think that works best for clouds. And maybe there's a little straggler over here. A little feller. You can make your clouds any design you want. You can have as many clouds as you want. Just barely touching the canvas. We are just barely touching it. Okay? I'm going to clean out my brush. We're going to use that same brush to put the white on top. Now, since we use so little paint here, this will dry very quickly. Very quickly. So give it just a second. And these I do kind of twist it around on my towel. I always give it a nice little bend just from the ferrule where the ferrule and the brushes meet. because water always gets up in the ferrule. We don't want that. This is a dry brush technique. This again is scumbling. So there you have it. All right, give that just a minute. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to dip into that white, but I want only white. I don't want any blue. I don't want any other color mixed in. I'm also going to take the loose hairs off the brush because, you know, that happens. They're brushes. I'm going to dip it right in the... See that? It's a little bitty dip. And then I'm not even going to use that. I'm going to tap it off. And as I tap it off, I kind of move the brush around so I'm spreading that little bitty drip of paint. It doesn't look like it, but I actually am. And then I'm going to take it and I'm going to back up on my brush, okay? Back up. And again, barely touch. And see how much paint I got out of there? That's a lot of paint. Stay on top of the purple, okay? So you can touch it. And then again, I still have a lot of paint. So I'm gonna, instead of trying to work that paint right there, that's a lot of paint. I'm gonna leave it there. Let it dry just a smidge, a smidgen. That is a technical art term. I'm gonna do the same thing over here. And he's gonna have a little flyaway friend. Oh, look at him go. So I am still, have not gotten any more paint. You can take your brush and do this with it too. If you want to, almost like a straighter line of fluffiness. A straighter line of fluffiness. Here we go, here we go. I have not gotten any more paint. And I'm barely touching the canvas. Don't smash it in, you will regret that. This is a very soft process. It's kind of zen-like, actually. I'm going to leave a little bit of purple. And now we have this cloud. And look at him. Now I'm going to come back here, and I'm going to move that a little bit. Smudge it around. We could even bring it down here if we want. Now I'm going to add a little to him. I think I want him bigger. There's no perfect science to this, guys. It's clouds. Just play. Go very easy. I'm going to tap just again. Again, I'm going to tap. I'm barely touching the center, and I'm tapping it off. I'm tapping it off bigger because I want even less paint. And if you really think you have too much paint, tap it off on a rag. If you're more comfortable, you can always use a slightly smaller natural hair brush like this. But it won't give you, it won't produce quite the big fluffiness of these clouds. I mean, they're not ginormous, big fluffy, but they're pretty good size. I'm going to tap over here where I've already put some paint. I'm going to get some more. And I put him on the side. Oh, I put him on the side. Look at this. Now I'm going to tilt my brush up. Hopefully you can see this. There we go. I get a little more because now instead of brushing in circles, now I got a lot that time. So I'm going to dab him off. just going to add touches of really bright white where the sun's really hitting it. You know? Just little touches here and there. It's easy to go crazy with the bright white. You won't like it. You need all those light and middle tones to really make it feel like clouds, you know? I think he needs a big bright white over here. A dab over there again, and I'm on the side of the brush a little bit more than on the he just needed some more white all in general. Okay. Go big or go home, right? Here we go. You just kind of mess around with it, I think. Stand back too, get some new eyes on it. When you're doing something like this, stand back and say, well, do I like it? Do I not like it? Do I want it softer, stronger? But I think we're pretty good there. I might brush out a little bit, and I didn't get this wet. I'm just going to work with a dry brush. I just want to wipe off as much paint as possible. And then again, I am just barely touching. See how I'm just softening it? Just a little. So you have a little bit of, I'm brushing at this angle. But I could soften some of that. It's not going to change it much, but it will make a little bit of difference. All right, I'm happy with those. Now we're going to do a little background floral. We want to get a dark green mix. We're going to add a touch of white just so our pigment is not so strong, so bold, because again, it's in the background. We're going to take our small round bore, this little fella right here. We're just going to barely dip him in water. We're going to make some of that dark green mix. So there's like a dark green touches back here and here too, behind these bushes. So we've got a little dark green mix going on back there. So here we go with our dark green, touch of yellow. Too much. There we go. So there's our dark green. And again, we don't need much. And I'm just going to dip over to the side here. A little bit of white. We just want to mute it down a little. Okay. So what I'm going to do is right towards, kind of towards the middle here. I want what looks like some of these trees in the background. I need a little more white because I feel like that's still a little strong for back there. See, I'm just moving it around. Stretch that. And maybe there's one here. And again, these are in the background. So what I can do is take that darker green and dab it here and there. what I'm doing? Taking that darker green. Because there's going to be shadows, right? All right. I'm going to take this color. I'm just going to dab green here and there, just randomly. There's just growth back there. We don't know what it is. I'm feeling very Bob Ross today. I'm channeling Bob. I need the hair. So there we go. I'm just little touches of green. Again, this is going to be covered by a tree, so if you want to practice over here, that's fine. Alrighty. So there's our background growth. We're going to clean out that bad boy, that little bristle brush there. You can do this part with a small flat, boom, or a small angular. See? This is our flat, the red guy, and this is our angular. You can do it with either one. I'm going to do it with the angular. I'll do it with both. How's that? Just to show you. We're going to stay with that dark green mix. We want the dark green, no white. All right. So I'm going to get the brush wet, of course. And we're going to take this dark green mix. There's going to be a touch of white in there, but that's okay. We don't want to add any white. That little bit of white that's on our palette, that's nothing. We just want a nice dark green color. This is basically kind of providing us shadows back there. Because those trees are going to make shadows. All that shrubbery we just added in, that's going to make shadows. So we do want a fairly dark color. Has to be darker than the shrubbery. So first, I love the angular brush. Okay, I'm just going to say that. Angular and fill, my absolute favorites. So I'm just going to cut in here. And look, I'm going to bring it down too. So this could be anything happening down here. Now that's with the filbert. I'm sorry, the angular. Got fill on my mind. And I'm going up into the shrubbery. Do you see how I'm doing that? You can even draw a couple lines if you want. That's with the angular. Wash him out. And now I'm going to do it with the small flat. Now the small flat is going to make slightly smaller strokes. We're going to get a little bit more. So if you want to just kind of add some choppiness, but see how thin he can go? And he can also shoot up some smaller trees in the background. But you can just gently scrub him and he'll cover what you want him to cover. You can bring him out and make small little shadows. So it's really whichever one you prefer. I think they both do a beautiful job at this.
Let me bring this out a little bit farther, just because. And I'm going to bring some up into that purpley area, just touches, just here and there. See, we can even make little small hills with them. I'm going to cover that little rough horizon line right there.
So we're going to add these small little purple florals in the background. I've got touches here, just kind of touching along the horizon there. Of course, they won't be as bright, so we're going to take some pink, what is this called? Deep magenta. Touch of purple. And then some white. Want it to be very soft, muted color back there. But it's back there. So I mixed this little pinky purple section and then I added some white because you usually need at least 2 tones of anything, generally 3. And that's true with just about anything, 3 tones. Because you need your medium tone, then you need a light for the highlights, and then a dark for shadows. So I'm just going to touch here and there. I'm going to grab some of that. Grab some of that darker tone, and I'm just going to stick it sometimes right on top of what I've already put there. And that kind of direct mixes them right on the canvas. But I do have a tendency to go ahead and leave the ones at the top the lightest, because they are getting a lot of sun up there. You can come down to the bottom. Add your darks. Again, we don't want a lot of pink back here. I think this is plenty. Just in the background. Now I'm going to add a little more purple. I'm going to grab a little more purple to this. I'm going to add more white. Getting a really nice, soft, purpley tone. Now that brush is loaded, so go gentle. Very gently. I'm going to add just touches here and there. Just barely. More than I wanted. That's okay. I'm going to get some of this paint off my brush. I just wiped it on a towel. So I just have very little. If you get too much like I just did there, I'm not crazy about that. Come over it with green. It's all right. Which I'm going to do right now. So I'm going to clean that little brush, little BOARS bristle, a small BOARS bristle, get it as dry as possible, and just come up and tap some green. I feel like that is just way too much. And there we go. Now it just automatically broke up that pink. Much better. If there's anything in the bushes that you want to, if you think, oh, that's way too much, touch the bushes with it too. It'll break up your pink. See? See how it's breaking that up? It's softening it. So it's not quite so, hey, I'm pink. I'm a big pink bush in your background. Okay, so next we need to create our tree. We're going to take our phthalo blue, we're going to take our yellow, make a nice dark green, and then we're going to add just a touch of our burnt umber. We're going to actually create the branches so that they can show. Now a lot of times you may go crazy with the flowers like I do, and then you have almost no branches left at the end of it, but that's okay. We can always add touches of branches in, but I go ahead and create a tree anyway, as we're here. So I'm going to take my phthalo blue, touch of yellow, and then our burnt umber. So we're going to get a nice, just a nice dark color really, because as you can tell, you're seeing very little of this tree. I'm not mixing it, over mixing it too crazy. Even on my brush, I've got hints of green, blue, brown, you name it. And I'm just going to put my tree right about here because I want it to go off the side, but I want it to bring out over here too. So we're going to start just what, 3 inches maybe? Right about in here. I'm going to put a line there. What do you think? I think that looks pretty good. Alrighty, Jane, we'll do that. So I'm just going to bring it up. I'm going to bring it tall. I want him nice and tall. And then with the tip, I'm doing this all with the angular brush. I'm leaving all those little colors to mix down there. It's okay if you do this because you're going to cover it with flowers anyway, but do bring out some branches, and I'm just bringing them out with the tip. See that? The heel, the toe. So you always start with the toe going the opposite direction of the way you're painting. See how I did that? Now you can do it like this. You can go with the toe first and then bring it down to the heel as it goes into a fatter line. Do that again. I'm going to go from the toe first. So I'm not setting the brush down. I'm not setting the brush down like this. Where are you? Okay. I'm setting it down like this. Okay. See that nice little line? Oh, that's so nice. That's nice. But you got to keep your tip nice and sharp. No smashing. You know how I hate that smashing thing. We're just going to do it like that. We load that brush up. That baby is loaded. They're branches. They're everywhere. They're everywhere. Ask anybody who's had to trim any kind of tree whatsoever. Like I said, I'm not getting too worried about the branches because we're going to be painting over a huge majority of this. I think I want one down there, just 'cause I can. He would be farther out like this. There we go. So I think that's pretty good. Now we need to create a shadow for this. Otherwise, look, he's just like floating. It looks very strange. So we're going to take that same mix, okay? I'm going to grab a little extra blue just 'cause I can. And I'm still using the angular brush. And it works really nicely for this because now I can just drag these colors. Sometimes I'm laying it flat if I want to fill a big space like that. Otherwise, I'm just going to grab a little more blue right here. Oh, I'm going to grab a little yellow too. And let them just mix in. But yeah, he's gonna spread out quite a ways. It's springtime. He's getting all full of color and branches, and I'm gonna do that just a little bit. Whop, and then drag it. Getting a little touch of water. That was too much water, so I'm just going to mix in some paint there. I'm going to thin it out, but I don't want to thin it out crazy. Not crazy thinned out. Just as I get to the outer edges here, see how it softens it a little bit? So it doesn't look quite so dense. The shadow's not quite as dense there. And it wouldn't be. In the center here, where it's really in the dark, it will be. But as you move out, it's going to get weaker and weaker. That is way too watery. So I'm just trying to really mix the paint that's already in my brush because I have got tons of paint in there. I'm going to wipe some off my brush. Quite a bit of paint. There we go. That's what I was looking for. So we got quite a bit of paint off the brush to do that. And I'm going to have to slow down here because I'm getting to the tacky point. Don't be tacky. There you go. So we have a nice little shadow under our tree. It looks like a lot of shadow because there's no growth there, but we're gonna tackle that here in a second. We're gonna take our FILBERT, our lovely FILBERT. We're gonna get them wet and we're gonna mix up kind of a purpley blue color for our darkest flowers. So we wanna have our primary magenta, our Phthalo Blue. So our Phthalo Blue and primary magenta. And once we get that nice deep purple, we're going to add a touch of white. A touch, a touch, a touch. There we go. I'm going to add a little bit more pink to that. There we go. So this is really our darkest flower. So when you think of, in terms of the light that's coming on this tree, the darkest flowers are really going to be kind of at the bottom. So the bottoms of the branches, the base inside the tree, more than on the outside. So we're just going to start adding some little purples. And this guy you can twist and turn any way you want. Okay, so you can make big ones, little ones. They don't all have to be attached to each other, obviously, because there's going to be more flowers that come in. And if you decide you want to add a little more blue on the way, there you go. Add a little more blue. Look at that. So we're going to have a few dark ones up here. I mean, there's going to be shadows all throughout the tree. And again, we're going to be painting over a lot of these, but we need to have that dark base in there. The contrast is what you're looking for. Are you feeling springy yet? Now with the same FILBERT, we're going to take pink, a little touch of that purple that we've mixed, and to help make the flowers opaque, because neither of these colors are opaque on their own, that's why we add that white. I want these much more pink than purple, but just maybe a softer pink. We're going to have basically 4 tones of flowers here. All right, and I'm using the FILBERT again. Bring a little more pink in there again. All right. So we're going to just dab these right on. Again, all different directions, all different sizes. This is kind of our mid-tone flower. So there'll be quite a few of these.
We'll have some on the outsides, on the inside. Just lots of color.
Remember, as they go on top of that purple, those are still wet. That can kind of smush some of that color around, which is nice. And keep reshaping your brush too as you go. You know, sometimes I'm laying it on the side. Sometimes I'm kind of, see how, what a weird shape that is? But he works really nicely here. And then I'll go flat. See how I'm just letting that white do its thing. We'll come in and add another tone, but while I'm here with this doing that, that's fine.
I think I have officially run out of pink, so I'm going to get a little more of that. Because as you can see, there's not enough pink there to even cover the trunk. There we go. There we go. That's right, I'm pulling up a little pink. Gives me a multicolored flower. Do your thing. Whatever. I didn't want to leave room for these in the background though. Yeah, we worked hard on those guys. They want to be seen too. Try and leave little spots of branches out if you can. That is way too much of the same exact thing. So if you do things like that, we can come fix them. Again, we're going to use a couple more layers of flowers. So. I'm kind of doing a little round. Just because as I play with the brush, it does little different things. I can use that. Use that bad boy. Just stick on there. Alright. There we go.
Now, we're going to come along and go quite a bit lighter. Since we're going so light, think of where light is hitting the tree, right? So it's kind of like clouds. It's almost in clumps. You don't want to cover up everything underneath though, otherwise that kills the whole effect. But we're just gonna turn that brush just like we've been doing. This is a lot more opaque because there's a lot more white in it. So be aware of that. But this is not our highlight. It is a much lighter portion of the tree, but we're going to come in here with just basically white after this. Be aware, see how I've got purple on my brush there? That's just because I picked up purple underneath. So I can redistribute that purple whenever I'm ready. Like, no, why not? If you start getting too much, then it's gonna dirty up. It's gonna muddy up your paint mix here. So just be aware of it. Just kind of watch.
Get some of the smaller ones. We want some sky to show through, but not really much. Because we want this to look so full. Because we are so excited for spring. Alright, there we go. Just a couple on here because I feel like we don't have much going on down there. Alright. See, we're losing most of it, but it's nice to see just little hits of branches back there, isn't it?
You can throw a few petals on the ground if you want. I may do that. I'm going to clean this brush. Mr. Phil needs a little bath there. And I'm going to take my small, first, I'm going to take a drink. Much better. I'm going to take my small BOARS bristle brush. I got that. I'm dabbing it directly into the white. Oh, sorry, my belly's growling. Okay, and then I'm going to do just dabs. But what's nice is it's going to mix with the colors that you dab it around. So it's not pure white. See, I've already got pink on my brush. That's okay. For a little while, that's okay. You want this to be enough difference in color to show these highlights. And if it starts getting too pink, then it just becomes blended in with the background, and we really don't want that. So.
Alright, so just kind of dance around. Look at that. Isn't that pretty? I'm going to go around the corner because I've got flowers over there too. I'm going on top of other flowers. I try not to get a perfect glob like that, so if I do, I just try and spread the love. There we go. Here's a whole big section that's just reaching out to the sun. Yay! We're back. Again, it's very easy to overkill with the highlights, so I'm trying not to do that. A little too much paint there, so I'm going to dab it off on a towel. Try and spread that around a little. I think that's a little too globby there. There we go. How are we feeling, guys? feels very straight there. There we go. I can fill up some of those blue spaces. I don't want to fill them all up. We just want this to look very lush. Maybe this is reaching out here a little bit. Him too. That's some sneaking around. Okay. I'm gonna grab some highlights over here, because they're looking lonely. Okay. I think we're good. I'm good. I'm happy with this. I always say that and then I continue to paint. Something's wrong with me. Okay.
Bum 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 bum. Pop. Pop. Okay, stop it. No, I can't. Just one more. There we go. Two more. I lied. You know what? We're going to end with fill. We're going to end with our filbert. So I'm going to take some white and pink, and I'm not going to mix them. I'm just going to let them sit happily on the brush the way they want to sit. I might grab a little more pink, and then I'm going to take that angle of the brush because I want some really strong hot pink jolts of color. You don't have to do this, but I like this part. So we're going to add hot pink. But see how it'll mix with the white just a little bit directly on, and I've got too much white, so let's get some of that off of there. Because that hot pink by itself is very transparent. So I add a little bit of white so you can kind of see through that hot pink, which I think is kind of cool because you're getting a lot of that blue in the background, which of course makes it kind of turn purpley. But I need a little bit of the white. And now it's starting to get a little too mixed, and I don't want that. I don't really want them to mix into a new version of pink. Because to keep that hot pink pink, I have to keep it kind of separate. So I'm going to wash off my brush. Of course, I don't have to get it spotless. Dry it off. Dry it off. And my pink is heavy bodied, as you can tell. Make sure that's completely dry. It's not. But see how you can just see right through it, which is gorgeous. I'm going to see if I can just stick some of that on there. There we go. Because we have enough color behind it, we may not need a whole lot of pink with it. I'm sorry, white with it. But I like how the two will sit together. I think they look really nice, kind of as a petal. And Phil just bends and molds how you want him to. Way too much white there, so we'll just come along and add a little more hot pink. Trying to leave some branches revealed. And I know traditionally your highlights are the very last thing you do. But in this case, I kind of needed those bright whites. So in case I came along with just pink on my brush, I can still get a nice pink. And that white will give me the opacity I need behind it. And look at all that color coming through now. Isn't that pretty? Because this is so transparent. Put those small ones in here if we can. So it's pretty much just pink on my brush at this point. I'm going to grab a little pink and white right there. And I just kind of alternate back and forth. I'll do just the pink for a while, and then every once in a while I'll just go over here and grab a little white. Boom. Make it happen. Make it rain, baby. See, so you can add. If you decide, it looks lopsided, and lopsided not in a good way, there you go. And there you have it, guys. A little touch of spring for you. Well, I hope you enjoyed this painting. I hope it brought a little spring into your day, maybe lightened the mood a little bit, because I know it can get very depressing this time of year for a lot of people. And, you know, with the pandemic on top of, you know, we are just stuck in our homes. So I hope that you had a good time. And I hope this gives you a little hope for the spring. There's a lot of hoping going on, isn't there? Sign your artwork. Keep an eye out. We're on YouTube, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. We have a weekly art challenge. This week it is Hibernate, which is quite appropriate, so you could do a lot of things with that. And we'll be creating more YouTube videos, more tutorials, paint-alongs. We have more sculpture work coming up. We will see you next time. Thanks again for watching.